I'm going to say good morning to everyone. I am Jessica Koch, and I have the pleasure of, at this point, I'm doing interviews internationally, right?
You, you are.
Dr. Gwen Schiada. She is president of Career Puppy, but more importantly to focus on at this moment is the fact that she is the creator of the Life on Your Terms podcast, which I had a lot of fun being interviewed on, and that was great, and also the designer of the 7L framework. And we're going to learn a little bit more about her journey and some of that. So welcome, Gwen.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I'm so excited to be here with you this morning. This
I'm
is
in
awesome.
Bahamas with you, so like
I
I'm
know.
right there.
I will send some sunshine your way. Yes, I won't rub it in too much, but it's pretty nice down here.
Out there on your yacht. That's pretty cool.
You can see some of the masts and things in the background, but yes, part of living life on my terms is spending a lot of time in the islands and on a boat. So I'm trying to walk the walk, so to speak.
And not a rowboat, let's just say.
Let's just say no, there's no rowing involved unless you want some exercise on the dinghy.
Right. So tell us a little bit about your journey. You have a very established, successful, wonderful company that about 10 years, is that right? Am I on that?
That's correct. Yes, you've done your homework. We're actually coming up on our 11th year in March that we incorporated Career Puppy, which is a media company. We help young people transitioning, find their career path, right? And make their mark is our tagline. And so we do that through our career exploration platform, careerpuppy.com. Schools, purchase a subscription, et cetera. The other side of that business is we work with organizations all around workforce media. That's our niche. So from CVS Health, if they want to recruit people with disabilities or military folks. So we do all just workforce and career development. So that's what Career Puppy is all about. But I'll pause there because I'm sure you have a next question about the connection between that and Life on Your Terms.
Right. So you built up this great organization. You're working with some amazing clients, and so you woke up one day and said something else. I need something else. So how did this happen? Did you have an epiphany? Did you fall into it? I know you have, and I've heard you speak live at conferences many times, and I know you have a really interesting backstory. Is some of that what shifted you? Where did this pivot come?
Yeah, it's such a great question, Jessica. So part of my framework, just being present, right? And listening to the things that call us, not going through life on autopilot. And I absolutely love my company. I'm still inspired by Career Puppy, but a lot of it is, I interview the people for the videos. We're doing the work for them, for our clients. And I sort of woke up one day just feeling that there's something deeper that I wanted to explore, and something that was just sort of mine, my baby. What do I want to talk about? What do I want to interview people about? And in connection to Career Puppy, I'm just so passionate about people's stories and how they get where they are, and how it seems that there are some people who are living in alignment. They're living their passions, they're living their purpose, they're living their values. And they take these risks, they take these leaps, and they're living lives of fulfillment. And that's defined so differently for everybody. Sometimes it's about a lot of money. Maybe for others, it's about just simplifying, right? Or whatever that is for you. And so I just became very curious about, is there a secret sauce? Is there a formula to do this? You look at people like Oprah Winfrey. I mean, how do they just create? Sometimes they make it seem easy, right? They just seem to create their lives. And there's other people who seem beholden to things. Well, I can't take a risk. I have children, or I have to think about my 401k, or I can't afford this. They have all these can'ts and these blocks, or what I call layers. So I just sort of said, I'm just going to interview people who seem to be living a life on their terms, and experts, right? Coaches, other psychologists, et cetera. And through that process, and you were one of those people that has an amazing story, although I'll give a little bit away, you didn't want to listen.
stubborn.
Yeah, seriously, I could see. So you something was calling to you, right? And it was like, no, no, no. But eventually people can listen to the interview to hear more about your fabulous story. And so through that process of interviewing people, I realized, and as a psychologist, right, my natural instinct is to analyze, to deduce things down, to look at themes and connection. And so I realized there is something, that it's not just luck. And there were things over and over that happened in these interviews,
Sort of a
that,
pattern.
yeah, a pattern and a process. And so through that, I came up with what I call the 7L framework to create a life on your terms, to help people who feel stuck or who maybe are in transition, get to that place. And it's all about empowerment and not being a passenger on this bus we call life, right? Because it is a pretty short ride, and I want people to be able to drive their own bus and find their compass, their GPS, and find that place of fulfillment.
So I think it's interesting, from the perspective of, anyone can do this, and you kind of follow this process, and you can come through this, that your formula or steps or whatever you want to define that as, and have this new outlook and new life. And I reflect back on my own, because I'm 46 and fabulous. That's how I tell everyone you have to say your name
Yes.
and your age. Who you are, how old you are has to be always amazing. But
Yep.
but saying that, I wonder if the 20-year-old me, if given these steps, would have found what I found much later in my life, because I have some significant turning points, but I needed the education of the other things I did and experienced in life to know what that joy and that trial felt like, in order for any of what I found out to make sense. So I wonder if I could have really found what it was for me. I guess maybe it would have just looked differently, than it looks now. I don't know.
That's such a great question, and raises a few points, if I can, Jessica. So you're right. And one of the fascinating things that I think maybe even a little bit with you, I mean, sometimes, I as children, I always say, if you look at who you were at 7, 8, 9 years old, like, what were those qualities? What were those things that you naturally gravitated towards? And I know, and maybe think about that as I'm saying this. And I know for many of the people that I interviewed, and myself too, and maybe we'll get into this a little bit more of my journey, but there's a place that I call the dormant period, where I just kind of shut down my dreams, my belief in myself, my boldness. But when I look at that place before, right, I say before life interrupted, I was a leader. I had this thing called the Animal Club, and I gathered the kids around, and I would help them understand about animals. And I was a salesperson. I had my first business at the age of 8 or 9. I sold baby mice to the local pet store. Right? I know. I always tell a story. I didn't realize they were feeding the mice to the snakes. I feel kind of bad about that, but I was raising baby mice and selling them for a dime. And so it looks different now, but some of those qualities, I'm an entrepreneur. I love to teach. I love to get in front of people. I love to lead people through process. Some of those core things of who I was before life interrupted is, I say, I've come full circle to who I already was. And many of the people that I've interviewed, one woman in particular comes to mind. She's an artist, and she saw herself as an artist as a kid. But the messages we get from society, I can't do that. I can't make money. I've got to do this. I've got to do the practical. But she came later on back to that. And that was her true place of fulfillment. So to answer your question, I believe that we could take the 7L framework and help young people identify what are some of their values, what are some of their natural passions and interests, right? And purpose. And it may look different in application at different points in our life. And that's part of the 7th L, which is leveling up. But I think that you could take the framework at any age, at any developmental point, and help somebody get clarity on who they are and apply it.
See, and that leads to my point to say that I don't think it wouldn't have worked if I had done it younger. However, I think it would have gone into, so as a young child, second, third grade, having, you think back to that time period. I was in my front yard, I would twirl my baton and practice imagining that some person who recruited famous people was going to drive by and see my talent and swipe me up, and I was going to be in the spotlight. And on some level in what I do, I mean, as speaking and doing things, I'm in the spotlight.
Look at you right now. You're a host of a series of a video project, right?
I guess I have to name those.
You should. I was just thinking, what is it called? I don't know.
Yeah. And I've been giving that some thought. So I've just started this, and I have about a little more than a dozen interviews that I've begun to do with professionals who I feel have a profound impact. And you fall into that category for me. People who are going to do something that touches lives in a greater way. The other thing I did was wrote a lot of poems, and I wrote I wrote it very young. I wrote a full story that the teacher that was leading the program liked so much, she submitted to several places to try to get published. It didn't happen, but it means that if I had been nurtured or had gone through some sort of program that helped build that for me, and that confidence and that direction, and was in a more organized format, and I learned things about imagining the success in my mind and replaying that movie in your head. If when you learn those things, it does change your life. And so had I learned that younger, I would probably be a very famous children's author right now.
Well, but it's so funny as I'm listening to you, all those nuggets that you described, you're kind of doing them after you listened, right? To that voice that was yelling at you, calling to you. So you do write. I mean, you write, you're putting together materials and programs for people to help them. You are getting this notoriety. I know you're speaking, on big stages, and that's the thing, Jessica, and I guess that's part of what breaks my heart is that, and where I feel my purpose is you thankfully did eventually listen, and you moved beyond your fear, and you embraced it and walked towards it, and look at the things that just boom, like unfolded, that told you were moving in the right direction. But there's some people that never get to that place. They had these, and that's why I call, like, the light for me went out for a certain period in my life. And thankfully I feel like I found my light again. But there's some people that they don't get past that third L that I call, which are the layers. And they get weighed down by the voices and the practicality, the things inside their head and outside their head. And so they never get to that fourth L of leaping. And, and it's, to me, that's sad for a life, because I believe we all have gifts, and, but they just, sometimes they're pushed down there so far that sometimes we even forget what they were.
Well, and now that I think, as we are entering this different space, because I feel like you and I, on different, we always talk about this with your 7 layers. You can be on rung 1 with something in your life, and on rung 7, or step 7, level 7. Sorry, I'm messing up your process.
You got it.
I'm using them rungs because I want them to be a ladder.
I like that. Yeah. And sometimes it's linear, but it doesn't have to be linear. Right. We can be fluid and moving back and forth.
Right. Because I know there's some things I want to accomplish that are on my list that I have just gotten started to understand and about myself and see how it's going to come to be. And there are other things I'm doing at a level I years ago didn't think would be happening. Right. So for you, where are you? Do you have some baby ones that are about to bloom, and where are you hitting your 7th level to take it to the next big beyond?
Ooh, I love that. So I listened, right? Like I literally heard of I mean, in my head, or whatever you want to call it, not to get too esoteric, but I heard something saying to me, go to a deeper level. Use your own voice, right? Because I've been through Career Puppy, a voice for others. Right. So I listened, right? I moved through, and my next sort of leveling up, I took the leap. I started the podcast, and now I really want to take the 7L framework to people to help them. And I've done that through, you were at one of the workshops that I did one of the things that I'm so excited, and this is part of my leveling up, right? The seventh L is doing retreats right here in the Bahamas. So part of my living.
How horrible. Oh gosh, I really have to do this thing for self-improvement.
It's a tax write-off, right? I mean, it's justifiable. It's justifiable. But, you know, part of how I define life on my terms is living a life, you know, part of the time in the States, part of the time in the Bahamas. I love sailing. And so being on a boat is, you know, part of the time. So I have an amazing woman that I've joined up with down here. She's from the Bahamas, Rachel Aberley. And March 27th through 31st and April 3rd through 5th, we're doing retreats in beautiful Hopetown on Elbow Key. And it's going to be a whole mind, body, and spirit. So I'm going to walk people through the 7L framework. We're also going to be doing yoga and something called block therapy, raw food education. So we are just going to take care of some amazing women, whether you feel stuck in starting or growing your business, or just your quality of life, or moving into retirement, wherever you are developmentally, it fits. And so that's where I am is really wanting to grow the 7L framework and just reach as many people as I can with that.
We're going to have a conversation based on, I've already planned my full year out based on your next retreat so that it fits my schedule.
I'd be happy. I would love to have you there. So we're already planning dates. So I will check with you before
my circle. You see that, right?
There's probably an L for that.
Pull you right into my me circle.
Exactly. I know you're a busy woman.
No, I'm a great promoter. So if it's on my
timeline. Exactly. We can work something out.
Something like that. I'm doing lots of self-improvement things for myself, and I'll say ran across happenstance, but in my world, it's a God coincidence instead of a coincidence. But I ran into this event that's happening just when I happen to have the time for it, you know, and that's not booked up for me in September. And I'm a mom of 7 children, and our youngest is 7, and I'm filling my minivan with powerful, passionate women who want to improve themselves too. And we're going to take this trip in September to New York and improve ourselves and our business. But it's led by someone, you know, there's always these inspiring people that you follow on YouTube and things like that in different places. And she has a great program. So we're going to check her out. And yes, I believe in pulling the posse together and taking the road trip. And we're also going to see a Broadway show while we're there. And
you can have a little fun. I mean, let me just say, Jessica, in case anybody's wondering, I had one of the women who's coming. She said, I mean, this looks, you know, healthy. We're going to have raw food. And she said, are we allowed? Yeah, she said, are we allowed to drink any wine? And I said, absolutely. So for anyone who's thinking it's, you know, no, we can have it.
Yeah, you're not tying them up into it. It's not one of those centers where they lock the doors and they wake you in the morning to wake up at 5 a.m.
Yeah, in a hot, you know, hut or something. No, this is we're gonna have fun. We're gonna have fun. We are going to
a little bit of luxury.
Exactly. You can combine all of that at the same time.
So now, is this what you would consider your project that's your baby, that you're new because it's a brand new experience? Or would you consider this leveling up from your podcast? So where does this one fall?
Oh, that's so interesting. Well, and you know, with the movement back and forth, I'd say it's a little bit of both, right? So throughout my career, whether it was on the career puppy side or this side, facilitating process, right? As a clinical psychologist, just facilitating process and using story is just at the core of what I do. And so this is new in that it's a little bit different, that it's in the Bahamas, partnering up with an amazing woman. But, you know, as you said, it's, we take our history with us. So it's a culmination of all of those experiences and expertise and pulling it together to create something that is a little bit new, and so exciting.
Yeah. One of the thoughts I have, I'm always thinking about how professional, successful women can really mentor and reach out to help other successful women, but that are reaching out to that next step for themselves and need a little help. They're not quite there yet. you might consider for the next go round having a sponsorship fund. So sponsor a woman to mentor, and so have everyone who chooses to come, if they choose to be a sponsor for this mentorship, then they can put a little bit into the pot, and then you'll have a scholarship for half, and then you can sponsor in two people or a whole for one, or whatever you decide to make that look like. But then those women kind of adopt those women, you know,
I
and
love that. I
and
love that.
bring them up, because they're not quite where they could really get to the Bahamas on their own without that little bit of help. I think they always should have some skin in the game. So maybe a partial scholarship. Um,
Exactly. And I will tell you, and if they go to the website, renewrechargeretreat.com, if you do come with a friend, there's a little bit of a discount. We have a chamber discount. But you know what, and you raise an even more important point, Jessica, that we as women, we need each other. And, I feel like the word tribe gets thrown around a lot, but one of the themes that came up across, what's that?
it's appropriate for the Bahamas, though, right?
It is, yeah. I mean, it did start with with tribes, yes, indeed, absolutely. But one of the things that came out of all the interviews is really the importance of surrounding yourself with the right people, right? The people that are going to encourage you, the people that want you to be more bold that you're being, that can see beyond maybe where you see yourself at that time. And that is part of what, we're creating with this. And so that's such an important message to.
There's a deep desire in all of us to do something greater than ourselves. So it's great if I can go and do something that benefits me. But if I can fill a van of 7 women, and then someone's only paying a partial hotel, or they don't have to worry about the gas, or whatever it is, I can help them to get there. I think that's that's helping it be something that benefits me, and I'm going to benefit from being around all and spending that extra time with wonderful people. But I'm helping too. So I think that's a question you pose in part of your program, to say to them, you're sitting here. Now imagine that other girlfriend or that other colleague or person that would benefit from sitting here so much, but just can't quite do that yet. And, and if we pull together the scholarship, that's something they could have in the future, because
I love it.
Yeah, they'll know, they'll all have 5 people. They could say, I wish I would have been able to bring these 3 to 5 people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know that's such a great suggestion, Jessica, and I will definitely incorporate that.
On their yoga mat. That's
exactly. And there's ways, and and I know it may, and what I would also like to throw out there is, I mean, yes, this is a wonderful, fabulous place to get away to, but we can do things more locally, for people as well. You and I are both in Maryland, and we can do something that maybe is a first step that's much more affordable, but people may also need scholarship there.
I think this scholarship is great for the kind of getaway impact.
Exactly.
Most people can pull together something for local, but I think that that big kind of experience, it's so life-changing. Okay, so if this wasn't your baby, because this is already in progress, we're growing along. I mean, we're already going to level this up. We've already got plans to level this up with scholarship programs. And
yes, we do. Yes, we do.
We've already leveled this one up. So what is in your mind, but still stirring? It's in its infancy. What's at the very first level for you for future projects? Anything?
Well, I would like to, to your point about making it, doable for folks, is to do an online program, so that you can be remote. I mean, yes, again, destination is awesome and fabulous, but to do an online program where, walking people through the 7Ls in a supportive way, virtually. I mean, it's here, it works, it's great. I feel like you're almost in the room with me right now, right on this boat. So it's right there. So that's what's next, is really taking this and turning it into a program that
great, because I know someone who can help you with that.
Now, do you? I have no idea who you're talking about. Who are you talking about? Give me her name and number.
So we're going to make sure that we include in the description of the YouTube video, as well as in the article and all the places we share this interview, the information about the retreat and how to reach you. How can anyone watching, besides share, please share with everyone, like, share, comment, but
Please do.
besides that, how can me and all the listeners and all of my tribe, if you would, and contacts, how can we help you? Is there anything else special we could do that would support you?
Thank you for that offer, Jessica. I think the question that you posed, you know, we're so close to things sometimes. I think just ideas, reactions. I would just love to have a dialogue with people. So I would say two things. I would love anybody who's watching this just to comment, you know, where are you in the 7L framework? You know, are you stuck in the layers? Are you, and maybe in the written,
so they know where we
so
are.
yeah, so they know. So the 7Ls, the first one is listen, and that's described as like, what are you hearing? What's calling to you? Is it a new bubbling up, right, that you should be paying attention to? The second L is love, and I define that as your purpose, passions, excuse me, purpose, passions, and values. And so living in alignment, right? So getting clear on that. The third L being the layers. Okay, so what are the blocks, internal, external, and also what do you need to let go or embrace, right? So those are the things that hold us back. And sometimes it's about creating space. So, you know, what do you need to let go mentally and also maybe physically, right? Clutter and it comes in different forms.
Yeah.
Yes, we could get into that.
I have lots of shoes.
Lots of shoes, right? So you say you want, you know, a different kind of life. Are you actually, right? So what do you need to let go of? What do you need to let go of mentally, physically? The fourth L is leap. So what is it that when you get clear, when you listen, when you work through the layers, when you're living in alignment, like what does that look like? What are you leaping towards? For me, just to give an example, I really want a hybrid life, my husband and I. So what that means to us, living part of the time in Maryland, living part of the time in the Bahamas, part in a house, part in a boat, right? So moving even more virtual in the business, you know, aspect. So that's the leap. The fifth one is land. And that's important just to say, okay, there's different milestones, right? So stopping and just landing and saying, okay, let me just pause.
Oh, and celebrate. Like, is that what landing is? Like, celebrate?
Exactly. Celebrate.
I've forgotten to do that on a couple of things. I need to take a breath and go celebrate a few things.
Right. It's so, yes, cheers. I mean, it's so easy just to go, what's next? What's next? What next?
That's where I've been. What's next?
Yes.
That's exactly what I'm doing in a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it's getting in a quiet moment. Yeah. Just land and say, how does this feel? Right. And then the sixth L is learn. So it's kind of just stopping and pausing, celebrating, but then being strategic and saying, all right, learn. What have I learned to this point, right? And you just play a lot if you reflect where you are and then where you're going. And then from those learnings, the seventh L being level up. So what's next? What do I want to take? I landed, I'm pausing, you know, what have I learned? Where do I go from here? And that's level up. And just so people, you know, like you said before, you can move back and forth. I'm leveling up, but I'm also trying to listen and move through some layers at the same time, right? So you can self-assess across the board.
So I would suggest, because I just realized we sort of exercised it, as you're learning and leveling up and reflecting, make sure you're collaborating with other people about the success and what it's looking like and what it is, because then you might get feedback from them, an idea from them that will help you level it up even better that you didn't think of. So pulling that's a really great time to be in a mastermind or work with someone who plays tennis at your level, kind of a thing, you know.
Or maybe even a little bit better.
Yeah. Or you know, usually when you're playing tennis, when I say that at someone's level, there's always things that person has a skill set or something that is above you.
Yeah.
Get that give and take versus just always being the mentor, which is great, be a mentor, but you need to be in circles where you have that more even match. So that you
absolutely. And you know, part of that that's ties in with the third L of the layers. You know, a lot of it you think, oh, working through changing your mindset, but sometimes those layers are, you know, reaching out to people and trying to bring them into your circle. So it's, what do you need to let go of, but it's also, what do you need to embrace? And that may be, you know, those tennis players. For
That's
sure.
right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this was fantastic. Before we wrap up and say goodbye, is there anything else you'd like to share? Or did we
I
cover
just,
it all?
you know what, you're awesome. This was so much fun, Jessica. I so appreciate the opportunity. And I would just, you know, I'd love to hear from people watching this, and just have a, you know, a 20-minute call about where they are, and always looking for people, you know, to be on the podcast as well. But I guess my message is just, you know, trust your journey, and be emboldened to live a life on your terms, not beholden to the things that could potentially hold you back.
And you don't have to do it alone. So we thank everyone for watching. We thank you for sharing. And thank you, Gwen. This has been great.
Thank
Everybody
you
have
so
a
much.
fantastic day.
You too.